When I was a little boy, I saw something strange, something I shouldn't have seen. My parents had these close friends, not blood relatives, but we called them the Osada family. Every summer, I'd stay at their big old country house for a few days. I was only 4 years old back then. One afternoon, after playing until I was exhausted, I fell asleep in a room right next to the family's altar room. I woke up to a rhythmic sound. Then, a rustling followed. A sliding, scraping sound, like something was crawling nearby. I was too groggy to open my eyes, so I ignored it, until something brushed against my cheek. I swatted at it and looked down. On the tatami mat, a thick white larva was wriggling. Being a typical young boy, I wasn't grossed out. I was thrilled. Whoa, look at the size of this one! I grabbed it, but it didn't feel like a bug. One side was hard. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes and stared. My heart stopped. It wasn't an insect. It was a human finger. It was deathly white, as if every drop of blood had been drained from it. It was slender, likely a woman's. Because it had been dragging itself across the floor, the nail was chipped and packed with black grit. I shrieked and threw it away. But when it hit the mat, it didn't just lay there. It stood up vertically. It started hopping and swaying from side to side. To my 4-year-old brain, it actually looked funny. Instead of being terrified, I cheered. Whoa, cool! I even remember asking it questions, and the finger would bend at the joint as if it were nodding. Yes, I wanted to show my mom, so I snatched it up and ran for the door. But as I ran, it simply vanished from my closed fist. Just like the soot sprites in My Neighbor Totoro, my parents told me I was just dreaming, which made me furious. I became obsessed with catching Mr. Finger. I went back to that same room and found him easily. He was literally growing out of the wall like a mushroom. I plucked him and kept my eyes glued to him this time. But every time I tried to cross the threshold of the room, he'd slip through my grip and fly back into the center of the room. I tried the sliding doors, but I couldn't get him out. I was too short to reach the windows. While I was plotting my next move, Mr. Finger hopped toward a corner where the walls met. I noticed a small crack in the old clay wall. It was too tight for him to fit, so I did what kids do. I used my strength to jam him in there. He wriggled and pushed until he popped through to the other side. I ran into the hallway to retrieve him. Got you now, I thought. But in the hallway he slipped away again. As I lunged for him, my friendly little buddy suddenly leaped at my face and slashed my cheek. The pain was searing. It felt like he had driven himself perpendicular into my skin. As I howled in pain, people came running. And in that moment, while Mr. Finger sat on my shoulder, he suddenly, gently stroked my other cheek. Like he was comforting me. The second I saw my mother's face, a wave of unnatural exhaustion hit me, and I blacked out. I woke up at my own house the next day. I never went back to that house again. Years passed. I became a college student and fell hard for a girl in my history club, Aiko. I had zero experience with girls, but I tried my best. But Aiko, she literally ran from me. Not just turning me down, if I walked toward her, she vanished. If I did catch her, her face was so contorted with fear or disgust that I couldn't even speak. Eventually, she stopped coming to the club altogether. I felt like a monster. I sent word through friends that I wouldn't go near her again if she'd just come back to class. It worked. A year later, our club took a trip to some ruins. We got separated, and I ended up face to face with Aiko behind a hedge. My heart sank. I didn't want to scare her. But before I could apologize, a guttural, primal scream echoed from around the corner. We ran toward the sound and found our friends paralyzed with terror in front of a stone monument. I looked at what they were seeing, and the hair on my neck stood up. Crawling on the ground was something. It looked like the top half of a woman's body, but it had been split vertically down the middle. It didn't look like a clean cut. It looked like a crushed mannequin. The face was split diagonally to the jaw. Using its one whole arm, it began dragging itself straight toward us. I froze. I thought, I have to save Ako! But then, Ako grabbed my arm with a grip like iron. With superhuman strength, she wrenched me forward, right in front of the others. She shoved me in the back, and I tumbled to the dirt directly in front of that half-woman. I felt a surge of betrayal. Why would she do this to me? Does she hate me that much? But the creature stopped. It reared up on its mangled torso, started twitching and jumping, and then it simply vanished into the earth like a mole in a burrow. No hole, no trace. I woke up in the hospital. Everyone had fainted except Ako. Later, we spoke privately. She confessed that her family were Miko, shrine maidens, and she could see spirits. She told me, I didn't avoid you because I didn't like you. I avoided you because something horrifying is guarding you. It wasn't just a ghost. It was something so malevolent that other evil spirits wouldn't dare touch me. She pushed me forward because she knew that thing was the only way to scare the other creature away. Then she said, you have a mark on your cheek. It all came flooding back. Mr. Finger, I had somehow forgotten him for over a decade. I rushed to my parents and asked about the Osada family. My mom tried to dodge the question, but when I told her about the finger, she turned white. She told me that back then the Osadas were furious. They told her about a room called Verazuma. It was a secret room hundreds of years old that brought the family immense wealth as long as the rules were followed. The catch? The room was completely walled in. No doors, no windows. They said I had entered through a hole in the wall that appeared that day. But in my memory, the room was bright, with open doors and windows. The Osada family business eventually collapsed. I tracked down their fourth son. When he saw me, his first words were, I didn't think you'd still be alive. He explained that Varazuma was a pocket cult. It was an artificial deity created from material, human parts from people who died hating you. The name likely meant the unopened room or the child's room. The room had to be next to the altar, surrounded by a hallway where guests often walked. It was a trap. Anyone who opened it was supposed to be incinerated by decades of stored-up hatred. Why am I alive? I asked. He smiled sadly. If you walked through solid walls into a room with no doors, it just means our Varazuma reached its expiration date. The Osada family scattered to dilute the curse. The son I met was a double amputee from a work accident. Eiko told me one last thing. The mark Mr. Finger left on my cheek wasn't a blessing. It was a sign to other spirits. Don't touch this one. He belongs to the Verazuma. That half-woman at the ruins? Ako said it looked like it was made of hundreds of interwoven human fingers. Lately, I've been seeing them again. In the Tokyo subway, I saw a thick, male finger crawling on a man's shoulder like a caterpillar. A few days ago, I saw a small, feminine pinky on the sidewalk. I wanted to get closer, but the mark on my cheek began to throb with such intense pain that I backed away. I've seen them twice this week. My cheek still aches.